Chaos and the Calm, really I just kind of, once I'd written all the songs for the album, I felt a little bit of pressure on myself to, I really want to be able to sum this up perfectly. Because an album title is a very important part of an album. I didn't want anything too over the top, but I didn't want anything too sort of boring. And I remembered all of a sudden something that I kept sort of, it kept coming back into my mind sort of over the sort of previous 18 months at the point that I remembered it. And I was having a conversation with somebody. That's the bit I forget is who it was with. But it just fell out of this person's mouth. It just came out in conversation. We were talking about, the thing of having to travel and then, more and more, and then being away from family and people that you want to be close to more and more. And we had a sort of whole afternoon's worth of just talking about stuff, because we were talking about songwriting and we were talking about relationships. And I realized that all of these things were all of the things that my album is about. And getting out of the place that you kind of come from, because it's kind of not, it can't do anything for you anymore. And he said, it's all the chaos and the calm of everything, that we experience, I suppose, like on a journey like that. And just chaos and the calm just stayed with me, and it just felt like this sort of perfect summing up of sort of everyday life, the craziness of everything I've been experiencing for the last couple of years. So yeah, that's why I called it that. It just felt perfect. It was a real it was a great moment just for me, because I felt like I had it, and I love it. I feel like it works, and I'm proud to call my first album Chaos and the Calm. At two different times. I was 11 when I first found a guitar. Well, I kind of knew it was there. It was in a spare room in my parents' house, in a cupboard, sort of tucked away, and I'd heard this song. I'd heard this guitar riff actually. Sort of specifically, it was the riff in Layla by Derek and the Dominoes, which is one of Eric Clapton's bands, and I remember hearing that, and it just sort of rushed through me the experience of the impact of that first time. Just as an obsessive kind of kid, I was just like, I have to know how to do this. I have to learn how to do this. So I went and found the guitar and started trying to learn to play, and that was when I was 11. And I was very much a guitar player. In my mind, I was very much, I wanted to be I didn't sort of care about the rest. I wanted to be the guitar player. And, but I guess, things just evolved and developed, and sort of 3 or 4 years later, I'd really started to take notice and take note of lyrics and melodies and the importance of them. And up until that point, I was all about improvising and playing solos and just making it up on the spot. And then I guess, as you do when you're a kid, you just kind of switch. For no particular reason, you just fall in love with something else, and you want to add it to your sort of list of stuff you love, I guess. And so songwriting and caring about what I was saying and the emotion behind a melody and the tempo of a song, I just noticed it more, and I decided I wanted to have a go at that too, because I felt like I had the guitar playing down. So yeah, then at about 14, 15 years old is when I started to write songs. No, early on for me, playing live and just going down to these pubs and venues and little clubs, I loved it. It was the most exciting thing, playing live. And, I get more nervous now. I guess, the stakes are a little higher and things are, it all means a lot more now. So when I was 14, I think the first time I played a proper gig, it was in a working men's club. And, I was just, I kind of got the bug for it that night. And I remember we played for half an hour, my first ever proper gig like that. And then, I went home eventually, went to bed, and I was wide awake in bed, just lying there going, I want to do that again right now. I'm not tired. I can't, I don't need to sleep. I could literally get out of bed and do that again right now. So, early on, I was not nervous. And I know, some people are the same, but a lot of people, at the very beginning feel, particularly nervous. I had, my friends in the band, they were, some of those guys were pretty nervous about it. But I had this sort of ignorant, I don't know, sort of ego. Because you do when you're a teenager, you feel unstoppable. So yeah, early on I didn't get nervous really at all. And yeah, it just sort of went in the other direction, and it increased as I got more serious about music, I guess, and I cared more. And after I felt like I was pretty decent, and I'd had like, played in front of bigger crowds and people were cheering and stuff, then you start to care even more and you really want to play well. So it was later on that I sort of started to get nerves, which is fine. I'm cool with that. I think they're a healthy thing. Hold Back the River was written, I wrote that after my first year of being just really busy for the first time and traveling a lot, which does sort of, that pulled me away from the people that I grew up with and my family and all my friends. And that, that's kind of a difficult thing to come to terms with and get used to, but that's, what I have to do. So I had this gig coming up at the end of the year. It was my first headline show in London. It was to like 100 people in the basement of a pub. And it sold out. It was great. And I knew that, quite a few of the people there were from my hometown, from Hitchin. So I thought, this is great. I'll be able to see them then. The gig came along and it all went by in a flash and I didn't really get to speak to anybody. And that kind of bummed me out. But luckily, everybody was stopping in a couple of weeks' time because Christmas was coming up. So everyone was going to be on holiday. And I thought, I've got 2 weeks. I can see everybody. It'll be great. 2 weeks came up. 2 weeks went by, and I just didn't feel like I'd seen everybody. So I wrote the song because what I'd wanted to say to them, and I ended up saying in my own way in the song is, I know I'm not around much, but I'm never gone. We can always pick up the phone, and I'll always be there to sort of, don't forget me. It was kind of that. So for whatever reason, Hold Back the River, quite a metaphorical line and title. That's the reason for that. I was supporting Hosier through America on his on one of his US tours, and we were in Nashville, and she'd come to see him play, and she had she has these bodyguards and stuff, and they were like, everybody out the way, she's coming through, and so we just sort of stood there with our backs against the wall, like, okay. She came through. She got to about here, she stopped and she turned and said, "Are you James Bay?" And I said, "Yep." And that was a very crazy little moment. Because, she's really successful. She's a huge deal right now and in pop music and music in general. So it was really cool that, what she went on to say, what she went on to tell me was that she has a Spotify playlist or, some sort of playlist, and she has a couple of my songs in there and she listens to my music. She said, I'm a really big fan of your songs. And, not long after that, she was like dissecting all the lyrics. She was telling me about, I love this line and these words when it says this. And I was just stood there like, okay, great, thank you. So yeah, that was how that happened. And it's a cool little moment. Things pop up on tours, and that was one of the cool ones, yeah. That awards like the Brits Critics' Choice, and coming up at second in the right up there in the top of the BBC Sound Of list. It's great, It's interesting as well because I feel like I'm right at the beginning of things. I'm right at the beginning of my career. I want it to be long, and I feel like people give me these kind of awards early on, and I've got a lot to prove. I've got a lot to show for myself. But if there's any kind of pressure involved in that, that's the bit I like. I don't know. I don't know if that's if everybody feels the same, or I know it's called pressure. So of course people find it. There's an anxiety that comes with that. God, they've given me this award. I've got to really live up to this. But I like that. I seem to, in my mind, that fuels me to play a great show and write some more great songs. And so it's just really cool to have that recognition. It's really nice to get that recognition from this sort of mass of people who definitely know about music and listen to lots of great music. So it's I really appreciate being included. It's cool. I still have my first ever guitar, the one that I pulled out of that cupboard, and one of my best friends who I grew up learning to play the guitar with was kind enough to scratch his name into it, and that's still there. So I guess as angry as I was at the time, it's nice. It's a nice sort of piece of. It's a great instrument to have, and even that is kind of cool. So yeah, I still own that.